This morning at 9:30 I met with the Governor. I recommended that the Governor should exercise the royal prerogative of mercy and grant Ms Folbigg an unconditional pardon. The Governor agreed. Ms Folbigg has now been pardoned. As you know, the Honourable Tom Bathurst is conducting a review into the 2003 convictions of Kathleen Folbigg. Those hearings have now been completed and submissions have been given to Mr Bathurst. He's now preparing his final report. Last Tuesday I received a phone call from Mr Bathurst who indicated to me that he was making substantial progress with the drafting of his report, but that he had come to a firm view about what the outcome of his report would be. He asked me if I would find it useful or if it would assist for him to send me in advance of his report his preliminary findings. I told him that I would find that very useful indeed and that would assist us all greatly. And so on Friday afternoon I received a memorandum from Mr Bathurst which will be published with the press release during this press conference, so you don't all have to go looking for it. He provided me with this memorandum which contains what he refers to as his summary reasons. Those reasons, that memorandum is very clear. I won't read all of it to you now, but I will read the relevant and salient sections. Mr Bathurst says, since the conclusion of oral submissions, I have been reviewing the extensive submissions of the parties and the evidence with a view to completing my report. Because of the extent of the submissions and the volumes of evidence, it will take some time for the report to be finalised. Nevertheless, I have reached a firm view as to the result of the inquiry. As discussed with you, in the particular circumstances of the case, I felt it appropriate to notify you of that view prior to the delivery of my report to the Governor pursuant to Section 82 of the Crimes Appeal and Review Act 2001. My task is, it is him continuing, my task is to consider the evidence at the trial and the conduct of the trial in light of the further evidence received at the inquiry to determine whether overall there is a reasonable doubt as to Ms Folbigg's guilt of the manslaughter of her child Caleb, the infliction of grievous bodily harm on her child Patrick, and the murder of her children Patrick, Sarah and Laura. I have reached the view that there is reasonable doubt as to the guilt of Ms Folbigg for each of those offences. Set out below is a summary of the basis on which I've reached that conclusion. My detailed reasons for each of the matters referred to will of course be contained in my report to the Governor, and his concluding paragraph says, for these reasons I am firmly of the view that there is reasonable doubt as to Ms Folbigg's guilt. Although this is not a report pursuant to Section 82 of the Crimes Appeal and Review Act 2001 in New South Wales, I have no objection to this memorandum, that this memorandum be either published or that the Attorney General make use of it in such matter as he sees fit. And so, as you would expect, over the weekend I sought the appropriate advice and weighed up the options available to me very carefully, realising of course that the decision as what in relation to what to do with Mr Bathurst's preliminary findings is a matter for me and me alone. And so I weighed up those options very carefully. And so, considering Mr Bathurst's conclusion that he is firmly of the view that there is reasonable doubt as to Ms Folbigg's guilt, I consider that his reasons establish exceptional circumstances of the kind that weigh heavily in favour of the grant of a free pardon, and that in the interest of justice Ms Folbigg should be released from custody as soon as possible. And so, this morning at 9:30 I met with the Governor. I recommended that the Governor should exercise the royal prerogative of mercy and grant Ms Folbigg an unconditional pardon. The Governor agreed. Ms Folbigg has now been pardoned. So I would like to also say that we also took the opportunity, as you would expect us to make sure that Ms Folbigg was released without delay. So I spoke to Analak Chanthavong, the Minister for Corrections, last night. I had my department talk to the Commissioner for Corrections, Kevin Corcoran. I wrote to him this morning notifying him of the pardon, ensuring that Ms Folbigg would find out about the pardon in advance of anyone else, even the media, to ensure that there was appropriate support around her when she was told of that, and for arrangements to be made to release her from prison without delay. I've also notified her lawyers. Also had a conversation with Craig Folbigg to let him know in advance, and I'm thinking of him today as well. It will be a tough day for him.